Hey up everyone, so something a bit different for this video. I thought I'd do a quick look into the latest announcement from Warlord Games, which is for their epicbattles Pike and Shotte range. If you are following the channel because of the show reports, check out the link I'll stick up now, which is for the latest show, which was That Attack, held earlier this month. It's a fantastic show with some great tables on there. Please keep subscribed if you have been following for the show reports. I've got loads more planned this year. I've been scheduling the diary with all the various events that are on and so forth. So back to this release from Warlord Games. I just thought I'd put a quick video together because I'm really impressed. So I sort of knew this was coming. I think it's long been hinted at by Warlord. And people's had a pretty good idea that it was on the way. So they've emailed today, let's give you a little bit of brief information about it. The first wave of this, so I think that's a dead cert that they're going to bring some more of this out in another wave, as they've done with the previous releases. It's going up for pre-order on the 17th of February 2023, which is this Friday. We're currently on Wednesday at the time of recording. They've got a blog post, well they've got two blog posts actually about the game. One is about from the game's designer, and another one is just about the release and what's coming out. The main thing that they're bringing out is the brand new starter set. So this is going to be pretty epic, I think. It covers so much stuff in one box. All in plastic, which keeps the costs down. And for anyone which has had a passing interest in the 30 Years' War or English Civil War, I think it's a great way into the game of Pike and Shotte and the period in general. So the starter set's called Push of Pike, which is quite appropriate, obviously, given the period. I'll stick a picture up now, so that should be coming on the screen. Great artwork on the box, as always, from Warlord with these epic releases. I think it really captures the period. Yes, it might not be the most historically accurate looking artwork, but it gives you the impression of what the period's about, and that's how I think you draw new people into the game, which is what these epic sets have been fantastic for. If you've followed my channel before, you'll have probably seen that I have done a few 30 Years' War and Pike and Shotte figures, and I really enjoyed painting them, but I really struggled just to get into doing an army of them, if I'm being honest. I think that's just because it's quite daunting in 28mm. The epic scale, I've been painting actually some of the original American Civil War figures, and I've been really enjoying it because you can pretty much just put a few base coats down, your base colours, give it a wash and one or two really quick highlights, and they look great from 3 feet away on a table. Yes, you can make them look a lot better if you want to, but they're a great way of putting an army together, which is big, relatively cheap, and quick. In terms of what you get in the set, there's a lot. I think it's 14 regiments of foot. You've got a good, I think, 3 units of cavalry. You've also got mounted and dismounted dragoons, some cuirassiers, a couple of units of commanded shot, plenty of artillery, and I think it covers 3 different sizes as well. Your brigade commanders, and they throw in a MDF terrain kit, which will be from Sarissa again, I'm almost certain, which looks great. If you've not got any terrain for the period or the scale, it looks fitting. I would say it looks a little bit big. Generally those MDF kits are scaled to 15mm, not Warlord's epic scale, which is 13.5mm. So the figures themselves, you'll have seen earlier on, I had a few pictures up of them, and I'll put some more on later. I think they look fantastic. The way they've organised the units for this release, by the way they've designed the sprues, means you have effectively 3 stands wide in terms of their epic scale basing, which is, I think they're 60mm. So you've got a fairly compact frontage for units, unlike what we tried to do with the Napoleonics and the American Civil War, where they suggested 5, and you didn't get any benefits over bigger scales really if you did that. This one just looks right. You've got a square look of Pike in the middle with some flanking musketeers. So jumping on, so one of the things you get in this set is a brand new Pike and Shotte Epic Battles rulebook. It is still Pike and Shotte. There's a really good blog post. I'll stick a link on now if I can. It mentions what they've tweaked. I think effectively they've done what they've done with the previous rulebook releases, and they've just reformatted the contents of it to suit epic battles, and added one or two very minor adjustments to the rules just to suit the scale a little bit better. From the artwork, the preview of the inside, again, it looks fantastic. All of Warlord's books recently, I think the layout and design of them has been very good. It makes them very accessible. I think spending a bit of time spacing things out correctly and presenting it in a nice, easy to digest way doesn't cost a lot more to print, but it does significantly improve the experience of someone onboarding into the game. It makes it much more accessible to new players in general, or new players of this period. And I'll expect it'll probably be full again of some period specific literature. I think they said this book focuses just on the English Civil War and the 30 Years' War, which is what this release is really aimed at. Because Pike and Shotte, as it stands, covers a wider period, which would be interesting to see some releases for, but I don't think we're going to see them anytime soon. One of the things I think is fantastic with what they've done with this release is the sprue design. So they've broken it down into 2 sprues. So it's a little bit of a halfway house between what they did with the American Civil War, which was just 1 infantry sprue, and then the Napoleonics, where I think they made 3 or 4 sprues each for the British, the French and the Prussian armies, which is obviously a big investment. This seems to get the best of both. There's an infantry sprue, which is obviously your core units that you'll be needing on the tabletop for this period, which is your pike and your shot, your musketeers. There's some, I'll cover it a little bit more in depth, but they've broke it down really nicely into your standing pike with some individual pike sloping. I forgot what it's called. Is it at port maybe? Just to give the units a bit more character. And in all the previews they've done, it looks fantastic. I think the real winner for me on this one is the Cavalry sprue design. I'm calling it Cavalry sprue because that's what's mainly on it. There's all of the different types of cavalry. There's also the commanded shot on it. There is the dragoons on it. There's the cuirassiers on it. There's the dismounted dragoons. There's your commander, which is different. Previously they've had the commanders on the infantry frames, so you do need to have ideally at least one of each of these to put together proper formations. And it's also got the artillery on the sprue as well, and I think the artillery is broken down into medium, light and your heavy. So you've got lots of different variations there. You don't need a lot of artillery for this period anyway. What's also in there is the farmhouse. I think I've just mentioned that. Again, I think having it in the set, great. Gets you a little bit of terrain on the table. You can play on your kitchen table, no problem. You're up and running. Again, I will say, I think the scale is a bit big, unless they've tweaked it for this release. And if they have, well done, Warlord and Sarissa. But from the previews, I wasn't convinced that they had changed. So moving on, as well as the core box, they're bringing out 4 boxes. I believe 4. Their email actually mentions 5, but I'm assuming they're including the core box in that. Which is broken down into English Civil War and 30 Years' War variants. Now, as far as I can tell, this is just a difference in the box artwork and then the included flag sheet that you get with it, so the flags are appropriate for the period. I think that's an interesting choice. I guess that is more of how they want to market it, because I probably would have said it would have been more cost effective just to stick 2 sets of flag sheets in each box. But what they have done is they've reused the artwork from some of their old 28mm Pike and Shotte sets, and those are representing the English Civil War and the 30-Year War periods. Again, the artwork, it's been around for a while, but it's great. It captures your It captures you in, gives you a sense of feel and flavour for the period. And then these boxes are broken down. Now I believe there's 3 plastic sprues in each one. So for these infantry ones, you're going to get 3 infantry sprues in each box. Unlike the starter set, I don't think they're coloured, so I'm assuming they will just be grey. It's great that they colour code the starter set sprues. I think that really helps you out. But these ones are just great, and I'll stick an enlarged image on the screen as well now, alongside the actual sprue. But I'm pretty certain you'll be able to tell that the detail is fantastic, especially for the scale. I mean, if you're worrying it's too much detail to paint, I wouldn't, because you can still just put some blobs of paint on these and give them a wash and they'll look great. If you want to go that extra mile, what they've done, I think really allows you to do that. And they've also managed to get a variety of different poses and troop types in there. So I think there's armoured and unarmoured pikemen. And as I said, you've got the individual figures as well to put at the front of your unit. What'll be interesting to see is if the commanded shot work well in front of these ranked up marching sort of pose shot, because they're obviously firing, so you could possibly mix your units if you're using different basing and get a little bit more variation in there. The second set that they've brought out, or sets I should say, is the Cavalry Set, and I think this is an absolute gem of this release. So again, they've broke it down into English Civil War and 30 Years War specific sets. As far as I can tell, that is just going to be the flag sheets, which is different in these. All the miniatures are the same, so it's the same sprue layout design. Again, they look absolutely fantastic. You can see you're going to get an absolute ton of different things on here, and I think this is what's really going to make this release work for a lot of people. And it's also Warlord listening to feedback, is that you don't need to go off and buy all of the specialist Cyocast or Metal Cast figures to make a slightly more distinct force. You can just use this set and you're pretty much covered for 90% of what you'll want. Unless you're perhaps doing the 30 Years War and you want a lot of cuirassier, because you only get, I think, 1 stand by the looks of it out of this box. But as you can see, we've got the sort of heavy and light cannon, you've got the commanded shot, you've got the commanders on there, which is an interesting choice, putting them separate to the infantry, but I think again it's letting them make the most of the sprues. You've got 2 big units of your standard sort of cavalry, arquebusiers for the 30 Years War, or your sort of traditional English Civil War cavalry. You've got the dragoons, mounted and dismounted, which is a fantastic touch. And hopefully at this scale you'll be able to get some more interesting gameplay with the dragoons, because you should have a little bit more manoeuvre on your table, unless you cram on way too many minis like we all tend to do as wargamers. If we move on to the sprue design, you'll see that you've got all of those different units crammed onto this one frame. It works brilliantly. I think it's just so flexible. This is well worth, I think, making this period. If you have had a passing interest in it, picking up, because you don't need a big investment outside of the starter set, or you could even just pick up one of the infantry in these cavalry sets and you can start exploring the period and getting some games in. One bit of criticism I will level at Warlord here is there's a lot of different types on these sprues, and the same happened on the Napoleonic release with the cavalry. It's hard to know what figure is what type of troop without either some guide or in-depth knowledge of the period. What I'd suggest to do in the future is to do what Battlefront have been doing for Flames of War for a while, and marking with a letter on the sprue's frame below the character what type of figure that is. So, for example, the commanded shot, which you'll see at the top left of this sprue, I would suggest putting a S next to that figure so that you know it was shot. And if it was a dragoon, I'd maybe put a D, or a mounted dragoon and an MD, for example. And if it's a cuirassier, maybe a C. And for your officer, an O. And that would just make it so much easier for a brand new player to get into this without getting a bit confused, which you can do when you look at this sprue, because there's a lot going off on here. So that's the main releases that they've got coming out. We've got a few extra sets as well, which I think are interesting. You've got some terrain sets. Again, vice versa. These are great sets. They've got lots of character in them. Warlord are selling them. I highly suspect Sarissa will have them on sale in their 15mm range in the future as well. In fact, I'm pretty certain I recognise that windmill, so they might already exist on Sarissa's website. What's interesting is the photos I've put on here with the figure which says for scale. They do look a little bit more in keeping with the scale. So I am curious as to whether these have actually been scaled down to epic. So rather than being 15mm, they've brought them down a bit closer to the 13.5mm. I'm not convinced because I think it's just some shoddy, not shoddy. It's good Photoshop work to cut out all these figures, but I think it's still slightly off. But that's something that time will tell. The other thing they've announced, in fact, this actually may be the 5th box set, is their Casualty Markers. Now, they've been doing these for all of their epic releases. I don't think they're worth the money. If you got them for free, I would use them. The issue I have with them is that the numbers you obviously paint them on, or they're sculpted in. So each marker's only really useful for what it says, like 1, 2 or 3, not a dial. That limits the use a lot for them. You need a lot more of them, especially for the size of the games. And I think what we'll do with this as well is they put them in the bundles, so like the starter bundles. I'll cover them in a separate video because they've not announced the prices for them yet, but they put them in them bundles in. You think you're getting a good deal, but actually you're paying to get these Casualty Markers, which basically make up the difference in what you save usually, and I don't think they're worth the full price. So that's all of the main releases. I'll come back in a second and I'll give you a few thoughts on what I think could maybe be improved, if there's anything, and where it's going next, hopefully, because I think they've definitely hinted that there's going to be a wave 2, so we should be seeing some more future releases as well. Right, so looking at where this might go in the future then, I think as I've said, they've definitely hinted there's going to be a wave 2. I'd be interested to see what they bring out for that. I suspect it will be a range of metal or Siocast Warlord resin, or maybe Warlord resin plus, which is just Siocast hard miniatures, and I think probably some of the maybe more unique formations. So maybe they'll do some cuirassiers as a standalone unit. What I think has got a lot of potential is the 30 Years' War. You've obviously got really famous things like the Winged Hussars, which would be fantastic to get in there. The one thing which obviously is missing from the English Civil War is the Covenanters and the Scots. Now, I would like to think they will do a plastic Covenanter sprue. I'm sceptical. I don't think they will. I think that would be maybe a little bit too much investment. But they did bring the Prussians out for the Napoleonics, so that would be the ideal, I think. I don't think they'd need 2 sprues. I think they could do it on just 1 if they mix the infantry and the cavalry and skirmishers and so on. It'd mean you wouldn't get as much out of your box, but I think it could be a good way of them offering it in plastic. So we'll see if that's what they decided. In terms of criticisms, as I said, I don't really think there is any. It's interesting on some of the groups online. A lot of people grumbling that this wasn't Hail Caesar related release, or it wasn't more Napoleonics. I kind of dismissed those comments because I think it's like anything really. If you don't get what you're hoping for, people tend to get a bit mardy and start throwing the toys out of the pram. Warlord business, they've decided to release this because they think it's obviously going to work, and also I think because John Stallard is a massive fan of the English Civil War. It's a great period. If it's not for you, don't buy it. It's pretty much that simple. I passed up on the Napoleonics because I've got a big 28mm Napoleonic collection. I didn't go shouting that ice is rubbish because I didn't need it. I looked at it and went, this is great, but I'm not going to buy it because I don't need any. And I'm sure I probably will buy some one day. Again, that's the only real thing I've heard from complaints. I think everyone has agreed that Warlord sculpting, which I find hit and miss, in all honesty, in their larger ranges, is on point with this their epic releases. They look fantastic. They're a lot better than a lot of the classic metal figures, especially when you consider that the sets that they do release in plastic are a lot cheaper. Again, in terms of what they've released, my only criticism is putting those characters on the sprue design for the likes of the cavalry to make it easier for people to identify. Obviously, that's going to cost Warlord slightly more in engraving the sprue, but I think in terms of what that would mean long term, it's just going to help so many people. And I hope if anyone from Warlord listens that you take that on board and just try and fit it in if you can in the future. A few letters here and there next to the figures would not hurt, especially on these mixed sprues. But yeah, overall, as you can see from some of these images I'm putting up, towards the end. It's fantastic in terms of its looks and its visuals. I think the 2 stands of shot on each wing with your 2 stands of pike in the middle, it just looks right. It feels like this is exactly what Epic was made for. You've got so much variety in all of the sets, you don't really need to go off and buy more. You can buy the starter set, you're done. And all round, I just think it's an excellent release. What'll be interesting, and I'll probably do another video on what my thoughts are on it. Now, my suspicion is that the Push of Pike starter set is about the same size as the Gettysburg starter set for the American Civil War Epic Battles range, which I think retails for £119 from Warlord. I think that's a little bit steep, to be honest. I think it used to be £99 when those sets first come out, and you can get it for that at a third party. It's still great value, I think, so I'd shop around and see if you can find a good deal picking it up. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what Warlord do. I think if they push it up a lot more, if you go like to £130 or £40, you're getting into the realms of a lot of the Games Workshop big starter sets. And oh yes, they're completely different. It feels like it's removing some of Warlord's value proposition a bit there. Again, there's the other sets. So, well, I said 2. There's 4. There's the 30 Years' War and English Civil War cavalry and infantry sets. It's 3 sprues there, so it's the same as the existing Napoleonics in American Civil War. It would amaze me if they're not priced the same, which is $26.50, I think, at the moment. Maybe they'll increase it by 10% or something if they have price rises planned for April, so that the price rises of these are already in place before. I won't grumble about that, to be honest. I still think they're pretty good value at that. It is getting slightly to the costlier side, I think, but prices of everything are going up anyway, so we'll have to see. In terms of any expansions, I expect Wave 2, if it is metal and tilecast, they'll be priced the same as what they have been for the American Civil War, like I've just said, and Napoleonics. That's pretty much it for this video, so I'll wrap it up on that. Hopefully it's been useful, just having a quick flick through. You can see all the information in one place. I will stick links in the description. Warlord have 2 blog posts, one about the release in general and one about the rules and some of the slight tweaks I've made. There is also a page now live on Warlord's website which shows you all the bundles. I didn't want to jump into them here because I don't think they're that exciting. You're just different sets of the core set with various cavalry and infantry boxes. I will do a video when all the pre-orders and prices are confirmed. Otherwise, thanks for listening. If you like the video, please hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, or you are already subscribed, please stay subscribed. There's more battle show reports on the way. I'm hoping to get some reviews of products out there as well. So I've got a ton of plastic box sets I've collected over the past few years. I want to do some little reviews and showcases, but try and include painted miniatures as well to make them a little bit different. And I'm probably going to do reviews on this epic release from Warlord as it comes out. Hopefully there'll be a sprue in Warlords Illustrated in March. I don't think we've seen that yet. If there is, I'll do a video on that, because this has got me interested. As I said before, 28mm, I couldn't quite get into it. This scale, I think it's spot on, and Warlord, I think you've done an excellent job on this release, which is not something I say very often about you, so well done. Thanks a lot for listening, and I'll catch you next time.